Hey guys, it's Jeremy here at Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What do you have for you today, guys, is the next episode in my series, Top 5 of each year. And we're on 1973. So if you're new to the channel and you like, top Block 5 list, etc., definitely check out my previous videos down below in the video list. And if you're new to the channel and enjoy the content, please give it a thumbs up. And also hit the subscribe button, join the Metal Music Meltdown family. I'm working my way through from 1970 through 2021, my top 5 albums of that year. And I'm kind of incorporating rock, hard rock, and metal because I love all things in that spectrum. And 1973 was a tough year. There's a ton of incredible debut albums this year. And I'm finding every year that goes by, it's getting harder to narrow it down to top 5. I'm starting to regret not doing a top 10 for each year, but it's okay. I'll pick my bands for each year and albums accordingly. Going into the 80s, I know it's going to be very difficult to narrow it down to 10 for sure. There's so many iconic albums in the 80s that I just adore and love to death. So let's jump right in, guys. What I'm going to do is work my way from 5 up till 1. And before I give my number 1 pick, I'm going to do some honorable mentions quickly. Just some albums that I really enjoyed from that year that didn't quite make the list. So again, this is 1973. My number 5 is Alice Cooper's Billion Dollar Babies. This is my favorite Alice Cooper album of all time. It's such a great record. It's solid from top to bottom all the way through. It's got Hello Hooray, Elected's on it, Billion Dollar Babies, the title track. No More Mr. Nice Guy is probably the most notable song that most people remember. But it's just a great song. It's, like I said, my favorite album from Alice, and I've always enjoyed it. I go back to it quite often. And at number 4, this one might be in most people's number 1, so it might be surprising. But I have Black Sabbath's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. This is their 4th appearance in a row in my top 5. I love the early Sabbath stuff with Ozzy. I love all those albums a lot. And this album is no different. I have it here at number 4. It's a great album. And some of the tracks I really enjoy. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is really good. The title track, Sabracadabra, is really good. Killing Yourself to Live is really good. And Who Are You is really good too. Just top to bottom, it's a pretty solid album. I enjoy it. And so that's my number 4, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And number 3, this isn't really a metal album, but it's a kind of an old school prog rock album. Like I said, again, I wanted to give some love to everything in the rock spectrum. I love everything in that ideal. Most of my listening is metal, but there's some iconic albums that I couldn't leave off. They're still in the rock realm. And this one is no exception. Probably the most iconic album cover of all time, the most recognizable, and you can probably figure out where I'm going with this. It is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. As you can see here, one of the most iconic album covers of all time. People wear it on t-shirts. Like, it's just so iconic, and I fucking love this album. I think it might be, I don't know, it's up there with one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums. I'm a big fan of this band. Dark Side of the Moon's up there. Wish You Were Here and Animals, I think, are my 3 favorites overall. But with songs like, with songs such as Money is a big one. The Great Gig in the Sky is a fucking iconic song. Speak to Me is good. Breathe, On the Run. Just top to bottom, Eclipse, solid record. I listen to this all the time. If you want a record you can just chill out to, put your headphones on and just have an experience, this is the one. It is amazing. Like, I can listen to this 1,000 times. I never get tired. At first I thought it was going to be ranked a little higher on this list. But when I kind of saw it came out this year, it kind of slipped down a few spots. And my number 2, I have the debut album by Montrose, the self-titled. Montrose is one of those bands, their debut, in my opinion, is one of the greatest debuts of all time. I don't really like anything they did after this, personally. They changed their sound in the second record. It sounds like shit to me, personally. And Montrose is one of those bands, the album is just iconic. It's so good. I think it eventually did go platinum. or at least gold. It's the vocal debut of Sammy Hagar, who would later become, the lead singer of Van Halen. And that's one of the easiest way to describe this album to people who have never heard it. It's kind of like Van Halen a few years before Van Halen occurred. It's got that hard rocking riffs. It's just a great, great album. I fucking love this album. Somehow I haven't picked a copy of this up yet on CD or vinyl. So I have to kind of rectify that and get on Amazon or, go to my local shop and pick up a copy. But I stream this album a lot, all the time. It's so good. And I just love it. With certain songs, Bad Motor Scooter is really good. Rock Candy's good. One Thing on My Mind is good. Rock the Nation, the opening track. Top to bottom, it's just a really solid album. I just love it. But like I said, after this, nothing else that they did really ever caught my eye. Or my ear, I should say. The second album to me in comparison sounds like crap. And I didn't like it at all. So just before I get into my number one pick, just some honorable mentions. A few albums that barely just didn't quite make the top 5. Led Zeppelin's House of the Holy would have been number 6, 7 probably. It's right underneath. It's a little different sounding for a Zeppelin. It's kind of more of an acoustic-y kind of sound. Not quite as heavy, but still really good. With songs like Dire Maker and etc. Blue Oyster Cult had Tyranny and Mutation that year, which was really good. Deep Purple had Who Do We Think We Are? And another big one that just didn't quite make my list. This would probably be my number 6. The debut self-titled from Aerosmith with the iconic song Dream On that everyone knows. This album is a really good album from Aerosmith, but it's not quite as heavy as their later stuff. I prefer Rocks or Toys in the Attic personally, but it's a solid album. And some other stuff that came out that year. Budgie had Never Turn Your Back on a Friend. Scorpions had Lonesome Crow. Thin Lizzy had Vandabongs of Western World. Uriah Heep had Sweet Freedom. There's a couple other ones I thought I was going to mention. Iggy and the Stooges had Raw Power, which is really good. And Captain Beyond had Sufficiently Breathless, which is a good album as well. But my number one, guys, is the debut album of one of my favorite bands of all time. It had to be number one. And if you're familiar with my channel, you know every week I do a video for these guys designated every week. And that's Queen. I fucking love Queen. This is their debut album. And with so many iconic songs and hearing Freddie in his prime in his early years, well, he never really didn't have a prime, but songs like Keep Yourself Alive is probably the most popular song. Liar, such a heavy track. I love it. Son and Daughter, again, is a heavy track. I love it as well. My Fairy King is good. Modern Times Rock and Roll. It's a really heavy record for 1973. Like, it's really, really heavy. And I really enjoy it. And going forward, since this is Queen's debut record, definitely don't be surprised to see more of them on my list very steadily, especially in the early years. The 70s Queen is my favorite era of Queen, and you'll probably see them hit my list pretty consistently every year until a certain point. So that's my list, guys. Let me know down below in the comments what your top 5 albums would be for 1973, and any honorable mentions you'd like to name, or maybe a band or an album I didn't list that I should check out. And this is 1973 top 5. Stay tuned for 1974, and until next time, keep it metal.